Good evening, everyone. I'm Robert Hannon. It's my pleasure tonight to be talking with Mike here. Before we get to that portion of the evening, I have a little song and dance now. I have some announcements. Summer Sessions has lots. How many events? 43. So going on this summer, and a lot of them are this week, and I want to point out to some of them. Tomorrow night in this Healthy Living series, Dr. Chris Gay will talk about modern approaches to chronic pain. And on Wednesday, Professor Claudia Ill will look at urban musk oxen of Nome. You got to be careful when you rent to them, though. It's a little tricky on that. And then on Thursday at the Borgeson Botanical Garden, two great groups are performing. At 6 p.m. it's Deja Vu, and then the Sourdough Risers perform at 7:30. So up.
If the smoke level remains the same, it doesn't get cleaned up, we will be moving it into the Great Hall.
Okay, so if there's smoke at these levels on Thursday, it'll take place within the Great Hall. Although Mike's going to talk about his smoke alarm and opening up doors. So maybe, I don't know, that may not be good. But let me make one last announcement. Did I mention cell phones? All right. If you have a cell phone, would you put it in airplane mode or silence it? UAF acknowledges the Alaska Native Nations upon whose ancestral lands our campuses reside. The Trothyada campus is located on the ancestral lands of the Dene people of the lower Tanana River. And let me introduce Mike to you. Born in Long Beach, California, as a boy, he and his family moved to Oregon, and at the age of 20, became a business owner. At the time, he was the youngest Chevron dealer in the nation. Later, he heard Alaska streets were paved with gold. So he joined the Black Gold Rush in 1976. And he made it to Fairbanks by way of Anchorage in 1977 with his wife Francie and 1 month later, baby boy Troy. He purchased Mike's Chevron on College Road that same year. Sadly, it was on the wrong side of the street. So in 1984, the building was lifted off the foundation and rolled down College Road to its present location. In the meantime, Mike made friends and built his business, family, and chosen community. He's become active in the Fairbanks Curling Lions, where the New Year's Eve tradition of Sparktacular was started in 1989. Francie and Mike enjoy traveling, but Fairbanks is their home. Welcome, Mike Thomas.
Okay. Thanks, Robert.
You're welcome. That's it. Okay, time for cake. No. We've got some questions. Okay, so born in Long Beach, and you moved as a boy to Newberg, Oregon. What was Newberg like back then? What was your young years like? Do you remember that far back?
I was going to say, we were talking a long time ago.
I'm right with there.
Well, Newberg was just a little tiny town. I think there was about 4,000 people in the town at that time. Grew up, went to high school.
Hold on, can I just stop you for a second there, Mike? Is your other microphone on? Do you know if...
Maybe.
That one is. How about the other one? Check on that. Can you hear him okay? No.
Oh, I'm supposed to turn it on. I had a hard time following the instructions.
Yeah, that's right. You can put it back in your pocket now.
Okay.
All right. So, and did you have like, were you into fishing or anything like that? Besides cars, we're going to get to the cars here in a minute.
No, once I got out of in high school, I just worked most of the time. I bucked hay, caught chickens in the middle of the night, delivered newspapers.
So you were the night shift for chicken rustling? Was that? You gotta tell me about that.
I don't know if you've ever, you go out in the middle of the night and they got all these chicken coops and stuff there. And all the chickens, you do it at night because they're all sleeping. So you have to go in there and, there's a bunch of us, you go in there and you grab the chickens by the legs, and sometimes the chickens don't want to get, they peck you. and they just don't like.
They don't. I imagine that.
For the most part, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Well, I want to get you to high school. You mentioned high school because you took automotive class, but weren't that excited about it, right?
I was not a very good student.
Yeah.
Okay, I was actually a lousy student. But one of our classes was automotive, and I didn't do very well in there. I slept through the class. And never knowing that I was going to spend the rest of my life in the automotive business.
Irony, isn't it?
But the thing I did like, though, was wood shop. I made all kinds of, I like working with wood, making stuff.
Yeah. Well, now, were you handy? Did you have any aptitude in mechanics or working with your hands, Mike?
No, not really. Well,
Not really.
You just trial and error, you do stuff.
But in high school, you get a job at a gas station and find out maybe that's a career path for you. Tell me about that.
Well, it was right after high school. I worked for a restaurant. My mom worked in the service industry for all of her growing up, and I got a job as a busboy. And then there was a Chevron station just kind of half a block away. And at that time, I think I was making 90 cents an hour, and this guy offered me $1.40. And I go, yes. So I, went down and started working for a Chevron station there right outside of Portland, Oregon.
Well, now, but I mean, there was something about it that you said, I could do this, right?
Okay.
Yeah. What was that? What? Because I've worked at a lot of places as a boy. None of them spoke to me and said, you could do that.
Well, it was fairly easy for me to do. But what I really kind of got me on my career was the owner of the station came in there about twice a day driving his Cadillac. And all he did was come in there and collect the money. And I go, this is what I want to do. I want to drive in here with a Cadillac, but then we had a little falling out, and I got fired. And then I went to work for an Arco station, and I had a little falling out there and got fired. But in the meantime, I got to know some of the people in Chevron and found out what it was going to take to be an owner, because I wanted to take and drive this Cadillac in there and make all this money. This just seemed like it was so easy.
Yeah.
And
so that's how it came about. But tell me, when you go to buy or become an owner, how difficult a process is that?
Well, at the time, it was pretty easy. There's gas stations on every corner. Because that time, it was all automotive service. And and you sold gas, but there was a gas station on every single corner everywhere. So about all you had to do was raise your hand and be a willing. So at that time, I borrowed $800 from my mother and opened up my own station.
Wow.
But at that time, it was everything was on consignment. Your fuel was on consignment, all your pieces and parts and everything was on consignment. So it didn't. Well, $800 got me in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was there for, it was just a little dumpy place on one corner, and it was there for 2.5 years. Then they opened up a brand new Arco station right across the street from it.
Ooh.
And this was nice, nice and shiny. And so I applied to get, and again, at that time you were just called a dealer. Chevron or Arco owned the property, owned the building. You just had to buy the merchandise, or some of it was on consignment.
Gotcha. So talk to me a little bit about that. When you have a service station that is also a repair shop, where do you make your money on that? Was it selling gas and oil, or was it in repairs?
Well, it's all repairs.
All repairs.
There was a time when I had the Arco station, I was making 3/4 cents a gallon.
Ooh.
And you couldn't, you just couldn't sell enough.
Mm-hmm.
So you worked on cars, did the automotive part of it.
Yeah. And so was distribution an issue back in those days, or was it all company material? How did that work, Mike? So would you all have Arco products and then all Chevron products, or did you have to go to some place like, was there a Napa even then, or those kind of outfits to get material from?
Well, of course, the oil companies provided the fuel, and that was the biggest thing that you had to do. As long as you used their fuel, then you could use other products. But at Chevron back in those days, they had everything. I mean, they had all the batteries and tires and oil filters and spark plugs. I mean, you name it, they had the whole thing. So you could buy everything through them. Arco, once when I went over there, they didn't. So then you had suppliers like Napa, and they had other big suppliers who you would start buying from, but you still had to buy their fuel.
All right. And so over the years, I assume the model changed. But if I remember when I was a boy, I mean, when you drove into the gas station, somebody had come out, gas you up, check your oil, do the windows, offer to check the air on the tire. Not so much anymore. So how did that gradually change over time, do you think, Mike?
Primarily because of staffing, and Oregon all had mini-serve. So you even had to pay a person to go out there and pump the gas. Well, there was just no money in it. You can't pay a person to go out there and check the tires and do all that there. But most of the time you still had full service. So you still had a full service, but then you charged more for that.
Mm-hmm, sure. But back then, gas was so inexpensive. I mean, do you remember when you got your first station, how much it was? Well, the 3/4 cent, I know you can remember. But how much was a gallon of gas back then?
It was about 33 cents.
Wow.
That was one of the early times when selling fuel.
Something else you told me when we were talking, and I thought this is so interesting. You really had your eye on being a millionaire by the time you were 30. How did you pick that age? And I know $1 million. Who wouldn't love to be a millionaire? But how did you decide at 30 that would be your goal?
Well, I was 20 at the time, and I just figured, well, 10 years is forever. So, and $1 million was just kind of that was a benchmark, we're going to, $1 million in 10 years, I can do that. So.
Okay, but you moved a couple of stations down to Arco at one point, but then you get the bug to come up north to Alaska. How did that work?
Well, even backing up here a little bit, during that time that I had the Chevron station, I also managed apartments. We got into some fast direct sales stuff, got into a discotheque, got into a dance studio.
Okay,
We had,
that's almost as good as the chickens. You gotta tell me about the disco.
okay. Well, there was a guy that I met who he was a late night guy, and he wanted to put together a disco. And so he contacted a bar, and we had, I was primarily put up some money for it.
Yeah.
And I was doing some bookkeeping and that kind of stuff. I wasn't doing any dancing. but we had stages up here with some young ladies, scantily clad ladies who would dance and stuff to disco music.
We call them instructors here.
Instructors.
That's right.
And a DJ for just turning records and stuff. Now, when things started getting really tough, we couldn't afford the disc jockey, so I had to do disc jockeying.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say you were going to be one of the dancers.
Yeah. No, that was never going to happen.
Yeah, but so tell me about being a DJ. So did you pick the tunes, or did you have a kind of a playlist that you started out with? That's because there are hidden depths to you, Mike, that you've been hiding here.
Well, after we had this thing going on for probably, 3 or 4 months, 4 or 5 months, I had an idea what kind of music that they wanted to listen to, and we had albums and stuff that was there, and so we just kind of talked about it, played music, and we had dance contests going on, and so.
Was it fun? It sounds like it would have been fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't make any money at it. We were just kidding.
But think of the glory. You always talk about what can you put on your resume. And being a disco DJ would be right up there. With president or something, yeah. But let's get you up to Alaska.
Okay.
How did you hear that call, and how did that work?
Well, the Arco station that I had, again, business down there was really struggling all the time.
Mm.
It just always struggled. And there was a period of time there where things weren't going very good. My wife and I had some real difficulties back then. We lost custody of our oldest daughter.
Oh.
So that created a real problem, and we struggled a little bit with our relationship. And then the guy who was doing my books for me was also doing books for some stations in Anchorage. And so he would come over and he would tell me, Alaska's this and Alaska's that, and the streets are paved with gold. And so I flew up to Anchorage and talked to a guy who had a Chevron station there, and he said, "Well, come up to Anchorage, and I'll put you to work. It's okay. I bought a new truck and a fifth wheel, and my sister and I headed up the highway. And in the meantime, Francie and I were communicating a little bit, and so pretty soon we went up to Anchorage, and we got back together and spent 1 year in Anchorage. But that was difficult because by that time I'd already been self-employed for 8 years, and working for somebody else. Oh,
that was tough. I bet it would be tough. I was going to ask. Yeah. So did you hear that there was an opportunity? And before we get there, when you talk about Francie and you getting back together, how you got back together, I understand, is a story. Do you want to share that? The trunk incident?
Actually, I should let Francie tell.
No, I'd be interested to hear yours.
Well, my sister drove up with me when we came up to Alaska, and we chatted a lot, and in there, my sister Debbie contacted Francie and said, he really wants you to come get back together, come on up there. Trying to think of exactly how it went, but my brother actually lived in Fairbanks, and they had this big trunk, and they snuck Francie up to Fairbanks. I didn't even know about it. They put her in this trunk. Put her in this trunk, and sitting there told me, I can't get this trunk open, can you help? So I'm going over there, and I get this trunk open. It's kind of like jumping out of a cake, She jumps out of this trunk. And okay. So.
That's an amazing story. So I think I've got my next overseas travel planned, Just make sure there's breathing holes in the trunk, right? That must be key to it. So you come up to Fairbanks eventually, the next year. Was it 77, I think?
Yeah, so at that time we were still working in Anchorage, and so she ended up moving up. We stayed in that fifth wheel in Anchorage for a while until the opportunity in Fairbanks. Again, my brother was in Anchorage or Fairbanks, and he told me about the Chevron station.
Yeah.
That was for lease. So I put in my request and did everything I could, and that came available. So then we moved to Fairbanks, and like she likes to say that when we moved to Fairbanks, she was 8 3/4 pregnant. So yeah, we took over the station in April. No, it was March 14th, and then Troy was born in April 22nd, I think, or what? 160. Whatever.
That's great.
Okay.
Well, mazel tov on that. But what was the town like? Because we're talking pipeline days.
Oh, things were busting.
Busting, yeah.
Well, 1977. I think it was June of '77 is when they, opened up the pipeline, and so everything was busting. It was lots of activity, and business was very good. At that time, we sold a lot of gas. We made good money on gas at that time, because there wasn't that much competition.
Oh, not on every corner. Yeah.
No.
So, but now you mentioned earlier, even though you made good money on the gas, still, I'm guessing repairs were important. And as we all know, Alaska isn't kind to cars, generally speaking. So was that a surprise for you? You'd been down in Anchorage, but that's not really Alaska in many ways. I'm sorry, anybody from Anchorage, just kidding.
They call that Los Anchorage.
Yeah. But so was that a surprise to you, or how did you adjust to that element, do you think, Mike?
Oh, it was, well, at the time I was in Anchorage, it was, business was very good in Anchorage too. I mean, there's just tons and tons of people and everybody coming up and everybody's got cars, and it was such a difference than being in Oregon, where everybody in Oregon was so tight. And yeah, business was good. People, there was so much money floating around that, you know, you tell somebody they need a, you know, they need something, okay, you know.
Right. But were there, I mean, I'm guessing lots of flats, you know, or lots of, you know, frozen engines. So what would you see a lot of the Oregon, not so much, on when people would call you up?
Back in the early days, I mean, cars had carburetors. Carburetors were a piece of junk when they were brand new. They all had V-belts. V-belts, when they got 20 below, you know, they just snap all the time. Power steering hoses, because of the fluids that they had was not. I mean, nowadays they have a multi-viscosity stuff, so that I mean, you had to change your differential once for summer and once for winter, because you didn't have multi-viscosities type fluids. Power steerings were just, I mean, cars would break, and
Yeah.
I mean, I remember some time we were trying to push a car in, and it's 20 below zero, and you take a gear shift thing, and you're going, you know, you're trying to just hear snap, you know, a rod this big just snaps off because it's so cold.
Wow.
But nowadays, cars are so much better. They have serpentine belts and fuel injection and multi-viscosity oils, and they are far superior today than what they were in those early days.
This is really for your son. You're telling him that, you know, in my day, cars were a bear, but now you youngsters.
Oh, he has no concept of what it was like in those early days.
So were some brands, you know, everybody has a favorite brand, usually a car, you know, either a Ford or a Chevy, and Subaru was a popular model coming up here. What would you see a lot of, and what would you not see so much of? Were there models that you said, oh, you know, I know what we're going to see next?
For the most part, most cars are good. You know, Ford, Chevy, Toyotas, Hondas. If you take care of them, they all work. I just always tried to stay away from some of your, you know, your Suzukis and your cars that aren't real popular because you can't get parts for them.
Oh, right.
But if you stay with a Toyota or a Nissan or a Ford or Chevy or something, it's usually fairly easy to get parts when they break. Take care of them, service them, and they hold up even today.
Right. Well, but I guess, so how about distribution? I mean, Fairbanks is a lot farther away. I'm guessing the hubs of distribution than Oregon was. Was it easy to get parts up here?
Well, for the most part, it wasn't too bad. Now, Chevron, again, those days, even the early days in Fairbanks, they had a complete line of everything. So we would order stuff and we could get stuff delivered within a 2-week period. But my inventory was tens of thousands of dollars. $40,000 worth of inventory. But we had it all on the shelves. And in those early days, there was Napa came in, and they did a good job. And well, I'm trying to think of a couple of the other suppliers. You always struggle, especially if it was a dealer item. The dealers was tough. So you had to wait for a long time on, sometimes, begin all the basics, so, you know, all the ignition and the brakes and the stuff that breaks all the time. We could cover all of that.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have a Suzuki.
Well, we're going to talk about gas stations in a minute as buildings. But I also kind of want to explore a little bit more about the actual vehicles themselves. Would you have a standard number of bays, and would you try to, would you rotate cars in and out of it? Because it's so cold, you'd probably want to warm up the vehicle before getting it into the shop, I'm guessing. Did that pose a problem for you on winters?
Oh, it was always a problem. One of the things you had to do a lot of times, we had space heaters. You'd have to, we even had kind of some big blankets, almost some tents you'd put over the hoods, and then you'd run these space heaters underneath to warm up the engine enough so that you could even move it. A lot of times you just had to push cars in and leave them in the shop for 2 or 3 hours before you could even touch the things.
Wow. Okay, well, turning to gas stations now, you had to move yours.
Okay.
And, getting cars on the road is one thing, but getting a gas station on the road is something else. Do you want to share that story?
Well, that's kind of fun. Chevron at the time had a long-term lease with a property owner. It used to be on the other side of the street where the Falafel House is. The Falafel House is where the gas station used to be. Well, there was a property owner, and then there was Chevron, who owned the building, and I was a dealer. I was just a leasee. Well, the long-term lease came up for renewal, and at that time there was just I think it was Williams refinery came into North Pole. Chevron did not want to compete with a refinery just right out of town because all of our fuel had to come out of Anchorage.
Right.
So Chevron didn't want to compete with it, and a combination of the lease expiring and wanting to get out of the business, they were going to sell all of their stations. Well, this long-term lease came up for renewal, but the property owner at that time felt like Chevron had taken advantage of his dad for years and years. And again, this is pipeline busting apart and being greedy. And he didn't want to renew the lease. Chevron didn't want to talk to him. And his last words to me is, well, what are you going to do, move it? So we bought the property where it's at now. Chevron sold me the building for $10 as long as I move it. So in 1984, we bought that property, picked up the building, and moved it to where it's at.
Yeah. It's the pick up the building part that I want to hear about.
Okay. Well, the building, of course, the building was a California design. Never, not
Lots of glass and...
There was lots of glass, and lots of the walls, were like 4 inches, total, and with this much insulation and stuff in them. But anyway, you you broke up the concrete all the way around the building, and ran these big steel beams through it, put jacks on it, and the whole building just kind of came up. Put it on a flatbed here, and moved it up. So before that happened, though, we'd done all the dirt work and the foundation and stuff where it is now. I thought that was always funny too, because we took Troy out of school so he could.
Yeah.
He could
Hello.
watch it.
Fun and educational. But break up the concrete. So was there a company that did this kind of work, Mike, or did you say, come to your pals, what are you doing on Saturday?
Well, there was a company at that time, it was called Mark Akers.
Ah.
And he did move buildings. That's what he did. And so the contractor actually that I had, he subcontracted to Mark Akers, and again, that's what he did, was move buildings.
Wow.
And it was always kind of fun too. Francie always likes to say that, he picked up and moved this building, never broke one pane of glass.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you say they lifted it up, was there someone working the jacks at all the corners, or however many beams there were that were, it's like heave, ho,
Yeah, basically, yeah.
basically. Any sea shanties that they sang, nothing like that. Well, it's remarkable. And then just to see a station go down College Road must have been something to. Did you take pictures or document any of this? Because this is something, your grandkids.
We do have some pictures of it moving.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where they're at this point, though. I've been trying to get rid of a lot of stuff, but Troy's probably got it in there someplace.
I'm sure. But then setting it down and getting it oriented, and you must have to put tanks in, and there must be a lot of prep putting in a gas station, right?
Well, there was this $10 building. This $10 building cost $700,000 at the time. With all the new tanks and new lines, and
Sure.
And at that time, we did add an extra bay.
Okay.
And to make it a little bit bigger, and some storage areas and stuff.
Well, after all of this, I really like your conversation with the guy years later. What did he tell you?
It was probably 4 or 5 years later, 5 or 6 years later, as he said, well, I really effed up.
I bet that was the last time he said, what are you going to do, move it? Yeah.
And,
All right, we've talked a little bit, but now with electric vehicles coming onto the market, I know Troy runs the station now, but you must always be learning new systems when you run an operation like that, right? You always have to keep up. You didn't grow up with electric motors. Yeah.
well, fortunately, I'm kind of out of it a little bit now. I mean, it's kind of called retirement. But fortunately for Troy and our industry, there's two primary. Napa Auto Parts is terrific because they keep you up to date on all different types of equipment, and they have all kinds of training programs, and they have trainers that come up from outside and put on clinics and stuff to keep him up to date. And then there's another group that was called the Bottom Line Impact Group that kept you up on marketing and trends and training for employees and stuff there. So between the two groups, if you pay attention, you go to the classes and everything, then you can, you can compete, stay up with all the stuff. Electric cars is not something which really is getting into here yet.
Well, right up here, I'm guessing. But they're an example, I think, for me, when I think about the evolution of the car. You go to the car museum and you look what they used to be, and the developed over time, and that kind of evolution of design and kind of the powertrain hasn't stopped. It's still going on and on. So it seems to me like you always have to be on top of your game, depending on what's being brought to you for repairs.
For the do-it-yourselfer, it's getting harder and harder to do anything on a vehicle because there's so many computers and the stuff on the cars that cars today are far superior than what they used to. But when they break, it's the old, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, well, anymore. It almost takes a rocket scientist to work on today's cars. Open up the hood and I go, oh.
Right. So, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is just, it only bears a superficial resemblance to the car I grew up with. And, and I would never presume on that. So I guess what I'm driving at is it's not an easy occupation or job today. But do you see a station like yours going forward in time? What's like your prognosis, Mike, based on your experience about what local gas stations and service stations are going to be like in the future? Do you have a sense about that?
Well, gas stations are basically kind of the thing of the past, but it's the automotive service. And again, if you keep up with what's going on, then you can compete. And the technicians that we have today, they are they're very rare. They are extremely smart. They're very talented. They get paid very well now because they're just not. You just can't work on today's cars. So again, it's as long as it's training, and we have some of these techs that are they're a little bit like prima donnas, but they do very good work, and they're paid very well. They have to.
Yeah. Okay, I know most of the people here tonight really were getting now to the important dessert portion of the evening when we talk about fireworks.
Okay.
How did you get involved with the Sparktacular event? How did that come about?
Well, probably like most people, we had, we grew up in the Oregon area, and fireworks was, that was common. You'd go out on the 4th of July or something, and
Sure.
you'd have fireworks. Well, we moved to Fairbanks. Now, at that time, Troy was real little, but after he got 4 or 5 years old, we wanted to do some fireworks. Well, for obviously reasons, July 4th, you can't do it. But we would go out and we would buy fireworks at the stands. And said, well, okay, we're going to do it on, how about New Year's Eve? So we went and got all of our bottle rockets and, sparklers and did all that stuff. And then we would maybe go out on the river and, play with fireworks out there. Well, the Lions Club, the Fairbanks Curling Lions that I belong to, we were sitting around in one of our meetings one time and said, man, you know, it sure would be kind of cool to have a fireworks display on New Year's Eve. So, but what are we going to need to do that with? Well, you have to have a pyrotechnic. So we contacted a pyrotechnic. We had to have a place. The first place was the Dog Mushers Hall up on Farmers Loop. We had to have sponsors because it takes money. And so we contacted our sponsors at that time. Most of them were Chevron dealers initially. And I said, we got a guy that came up from Anchorage. And we had our first fireworks display there.
At Mushers Hall.
At the Mushers
The
Hall.
field there, yeah.
And it went over very well. And so the next year, we were going to do it again. But the Dog Mushers Hall was committed. They had some other event that was, so we couldn't do it there. So we went down to the fairgrounds. And so for the next 3 years, we held it at the fairgrounds. But that was kind of a problem because the fairgrounds basically only has one way in and out. And there was thousands and, well, hundreds and hundreds of cars that was there. And it was just, it was difficult getting in and out of.
Sure.
The fire marshal here at the university at that time, a guy named Vern Long, you know, because they also came down and provided support, you know, for security and
Right.
fire and everything.
Yeah.
And Vern says, well, you know, I got an idea. Why don't I approach the university about having it up here at the lookout? So that was after, I think, our fifth year. And it's been there ever since.
Yeah, it's an institution, in fact. But I'm going to break out a couple of pieces that you touched on there. So you need pyrotechnic specialists to do that. Do you just don't go down on the rich and say, load me up here, we're going to have something. Do you order them from a special vendor, or how does that work?
Well, again, it's a licensed pyrotechnic, and he has to have an ATC license. He's registered with ATF, registered with ATF, and they buy them initially, a lot of them out of China. Now, they did quite a few shows, so they get the fireworks for all these different shows. They had fires at Anchorage.
So let me see if I understand this right. So the pyrotechnic specialist is the one who will order. Is
Right.
there like a catalog and said, well, here, the one with the waterfall here is, so much. So would that be kind of what you do, or you just trust, I want a great show, I want it to last 10, 15 minutes, go for it?
Basically, that's it.
Okay.
I tell him, the guy's name was Rodney Clark early on. He was such a character. Say, well, I got so much money. This is my budget. What kind of a show can you give me? So he plans but our very first show, actually, it was terrible. It was
So
the worst.
tell me why it was terrible.
It was terrible because I wanted to fire off the fireworks. And he said, because he told me I could do it,
Oh,
So here we're setting up, all the fireworks are out here. Well, the problem was, I want to light it and I want to watch it. Well, it was a terrible show, because it took so long in order to do it. So after that, I just, Rodney.
yeah.
So I was a spectator after that.
And so, but do you need much space? That lookout section isn't necessarily large. But it's a great position for looking out, having a lot of people look at
Well, the UAF Fire Department and their risk management has some very strict rules and
Okay.
parameters. The size of the shell will determine the radius. So that's where, you can't, they built a radius out there and you can't get in there because
Too close,
because
yeah.
of fallout and stuff
Okay.
there. So risk management from the university, they have a job to do.
Yeah.
They try to make sure everything is safe.
Is there a year that stands out in your mind as the best or anything like that?
Well, the most exciting one was in the year 2000 when we raised, this was the year 2000. The world was going to come to an end. So we decided we were going to
Blow out the stops on that one.
we pulled out all the stops. We raised, I had a whole pile of money here. They gave it to them. Well, actually it was two things. The night, New Year's Eve, it was 40 below zero and you couldn't see the hand in front of your face. So we had to postpone it for a week. So we postponed it. But then all the fireworks, they shot the fireworks. We had this big fireworks display all in about a minute and a half. We could have rivaled New York, rivaled anybody, but for about a minute and a half, because they all went off at the same time. And just.
I'll bet you learned a lesson on that one, right? Anticipation, that sort of. But it's such an institution now that we all look forward to. And so I want to acknowledge that. And you mentioned Francie, but I have to ask you, she was a flight instructor, had her own school and whatnot. But is there a truth to the rumor that you bought her an airplane to surprise her? Because, that's upping the game for a lot of husbands. The vacuum is not going to cut it anymore.
Well, her dad was an air traffic controller, and she used to climb up this tower up there in Portland and visit with her dad and stuff. And she always kind of got the bug for flying. But then we moved to Fairbanks, and everybody in Fairbanks flies. There's pilots everywhere, and we had all kinds of friends and stuff. And of course, over the course of things, she says, well, it'd really be fun to, maybe learn how to fly one of these days, huh? Okay, great. Well, I'd like to maybe learn how to fly too. That'd be fun. Well, then one day I talked to a friend, and he says, well, if two of you is gonna learn how to fly, then you might as well go buy a little airplane. You buy a small trainer, and so you don't have to rent one. So I found one, and bought it, and for Christmas I said, Francie, I got something here I want to show you. So we went out to the airport, and I go, here's an airplane.
So, you don't go on the lot, kick the tires, and say, that looks just like Francie. I think that'll be a good one. How did you pick the aircraft? Did you know kind of roughly?
It was an acquaintance, a friend,
Uh-huh.
who said this is a pretty nice little airplane, and
Yeah.
so I trusted him, and of course she ended up flying that airplane for years. And that also there was a time where business was tough, and I worked pretty hard there for a long time, and I've often said that I wish she would have gotten involved with drugs or another man. Because I could have competed with that there. I could not compete with her in her airplane. And it came to a point where he said, you know, we can't afford this. Okay? We can't afford it. We got to get rid of the airplane. You got to quit flying all this. And of course, her little favorite saying as well, let's sell the furniture. Let's sell the kids. Let's sell all my jewelry. I'm not giving up my airplane.
Well, I'll remember that next time Julie says, you know, I'd like to take up and okay, you'll regret that. But I want to point out that both you and Francie, great shape. You talk about the Curling Lions. I'm sure curling must be part of that. And your pickleball players too. Is that always been, physical activity always been part of your kind of makeup or doing things like that?
Well, curling was very short-lived. We never really did too much with curling. We're still in the Lions, but we just don't curl. But we've always tried to stay active. Now, pickleball has been the thing that we're doing a lot now. But she goes to, you know, she does yoga, and she walks a lot, and I go to the gym and play pickleball, and we even got Robert out here playing pickleball here a week or so ago. And
that's right. So this Christmas, I'm looking for one of those courts for Christmas, Mike. Just dropping a hint here.
Well, I'm a firm believer that exercise is the fountain of youth. So stay busy, exercise.
Well, the other thing you seem to do a lot of is travel. Where did the travel bug come from?
Oh my goodness, yes, we have been traveling. Sometimes it's kind of I sit back and think about all the places we've visited. I guess for the most part it started. We have some other friends who we went to Spain, spent a few days there, and then we spent about 3 weeks traveling around France. Now this has been some time ago, and we spent a car driving around France, went into Paris, and spent a couple of weeks there. And so I guess that really kind of got us in the bug. But since then, I don't know, we've been all over Europe, and of course Michelle over here and her
tours.
And of course you and I, we've spent in Julie, you know, 3 or 4 trips together, and
always fun, and you learn so much. But so do you see you traveling just down the line, continuing it?
Well, I think as long as our health and our money holds out, and as long as Michelle keeps these summer session programs going.
That's great. Well,
I mean, I know there's going to come a time where traveling is a lot of work, actually.
Yeah.
So as long as our health holds out, and I don't see us quitting yet. There's too many places in the world to go.
Yeah, that's great. Well, my last question before I turn it over, because we usually have people who know you, who have their own stories or questions for you. I have to ask, what's your favorite car? Because every mechanic has to have a favorite car.
Well, actually I have 2 cars.
Okay.
My very first one was an Olds 442. Oh God, that was so much fun. I mean, that had a 4-speed. Man, I could take it. That was my younger days. Oh God, I used to just, man, I could go fast in that thing.
I'm glad we didn't talk about this at the beginning. And the other car?
The other one is I have a 73 Mercedes 450 SL. And,
That's a sweet car.
and that, my dad bought it new back in '73. And when he passed away, it went to his wife, my stepmother at that time. And then she passed away. It's down in Long Beach, California. So it grew up in Long Beach, and so I had it shipped up from Long Beach, and that was, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. And unfortunately, I thought it was in better shape than what it was.
You wouldn't know a mechanic, would you?
Well, I did.
That's all right.
Do.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been. It had a lot of stuff it needed, but it's really a fun car.
It's a beautiful car, yeah.
It's a beautiful little car now.
Okay, I warned you now, there are folks out here who known you for years. Does anyone have a question or a story? All right, the gentleman in the back.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Alan.
I just got to say, it's a lot of joy playing pickleball with Mike. And he's very good, and his wife, Francine, is very good also.
Okay.
But I have a question about gas. I've always been curious about this. What's that 9/10 at the last part of the price on the big board? Like $3.65 and 9/10. What's with the 9/10?
Okay, the question for people who might not have been able to hear, there's always a 9/10 tacked on to the price of gas. What's going on with that?
It's for the same thing when you go to the store and it says, this is $9.99. It's not $10, it's $90. You just add that. It was a way, now this is even before my time. And, I was.
Is that possible?
I know. I became a Chevron dealer in 1968.
Wow.
And it was there then. So I think it was
Yeah.
just a way of adding, you could add an extra, almost a penny to it, and hopefully nobody would notice.
You always feel a little better. Oh, it's not quite that,
It's-
like you got a deal or something. Okay, Don?
Yeah, when I moved here in '70, we didn't have the fireworks that you brought to town, and that's great. But you might have heard there was an explosion down in California, west of Sacramento, about 30 miles, about a week or so ago.
Okay.
As it came out, I lived about 10 miles away from it, and it really shocked me. What would you have advised those people to do that they didn't do right?
Don't smoke around the fireworks, right? Yeah, so what would you advise for,
Well, again, I don't handle the fireworks. So we have the pyrotechnic, they buy them, they store them, they ship them, they set them up. And so, obviously somebody, well, it's fireworks is it's a bomb. It's a,
They were just storing it. They weren't even, they had trucks coming in and taking them away, and they were supposed to send them over to somebody the day before July 4th, but they couldn't because they were bloomed, they had blown up.
well, they call them like spontaneous combustion type of thing.
No, I don't know if they've even figured it out. They've in a little town called Sparta.
Until it snows.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
No.
but I guess when you have a specialist like that, they handle all those, and the insurance must be, significant to make sure events like that don't happen as well.
Well, obviously they screwed up someplace.
Yeah, that's
know.
right.
There's a spark from something. Maybe you drop you can drop a tool on a cement floor, and it can kind of create a spark. Something like that happened.
Mm.
But fortunately, I don't have to deal with that.
All right. Any questions? Yeah.
I want to know why you didn't get a Cadillac.
We kind of set the bar for you, right?
Well, because I need a truck. Alaska, you got to have a truck. Okay.
At one time, there was Vern on Cushman Street and Jerry Cryer on Gaffney Street and you on College Road. And I wonder if the three of you were more competitive or more colleagues, all running Chevron stations.
So were the Chevron stations in town competitive or friendly, or how did that work?
Yes. Well, we always, there was 5 of us for years and years and years and years. And we just called ourselves, we're competitive, we're friendly competitors, you know. But there's enough of a market and we're spread out enough that his customers, their customers, my customers are all, you know, he tried to do a good job, but we never really competed against each other.
You know, it's remarkable Chevron's staying power because it was around when I was a boy, but there are not many gas companies or fuel companies from my childhood that are still around. So that must be, that's something to, any reflections on that, Mike?
Well, we're one of the few places that still has automotive service along with fuel. Most places in the country, they got rid of automotive service and they just have, well, I call them, there's C-stores, convenience stores. And because Chevron wants to sell gas, they don't want to fix cars. So people in convenience stores, you know, people go in there and they're going to buy their Twinkies or their cigarettes or their beer and then fill up gas on the way out. That's how they sell gas.
Yeah, different business model, isn't it? Well, it's a little bit after 8 o'clock, so I want to take this opportunity. Oh, one other question.
The Chevron gas was always, 10 cents higher a gallon, something like that. My husband always insisted it was so much better. Better additives, the car ran better. Can you talk about the price differential?
So price differential on gas, and was Chevron superior? You're going to ask him that question. Seriously.
Okay. Well, Patty, of course it's superior.
Yeah, that's right.
Why was it superior?
Well, I mean, I guess this goes back, way back when Chevron always had a better product control. They had a better distribution system. They usually had people that were there that could answer questions. You know, try to go to Costco and ask somebody a question. You know, you're not going to get it. Or Fred Meyer's, you're not going to get any questions. So, but it was the whole system. They always tried to make sure that their product was taken care of more. There was a lot more safeguards in there. And personally, I just think Chevron fuel is better. And we're offering something that you can't get from Fred Meyer's or Costco, and so I think it's worth more. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there. All right, well, Mike, thank you once again. Mike Thomas.
Okay.